Starfield on the Xbox Series X and S, and obviously the PC. One of those hyped up games that, well, was very much hyped up thanks to Bethesda, because that is what they do. They like to hype up their games that come out, calling this game the game of the generation. I have, it said, about 3 days worth of playtime into this, and obviously with that there's going to be people saying you didn't play it enough, yada yada yada, but my personal experience, this is not a game of the generation. Now, is it a terrible game? No, it's just not up to par as to what was hyped and given to us. We were promised more or less a space exploration game, and we didn't get much of a space exploration game. We got a experimental game. It's the best way I can describe it. And yes, I know this review or impressions or talk or whatever you want to call it is out a little late. By the time I hopefully get this out, there will be a new quality of life update coming up at the end of the month or around the 10th. But the base game itself is fairly disappointing. I don't mean it's terrible. I don't recommend it kind of disappointing. I would recommend, if you enjoy a game just to kind of kill some time, or if you're just trying to chill out and not worry about a thing. The story of this game, until we get more of it from future DLC, is very lackluster, and it's not very engaging. It's also very short. There's a ton of side missions. I keep running into the same ones through the third gameplay I have on right now. And I mean, they're varied in a sense, but not varied where it's like, oh, each one is different from the other. There's a ton of small things to do, like making outposts, customizing ships, building your own ships, exploring each planet as much as you're able to, build relationships with your fellow Constellation members, and just kind of hanging out, doing nothing. There's also a bunch of different factions to get involved with. And yeah, like I said, the story itself is very short, very mediocre. Definitely not a very enjoyable one. It has potential, but until, like said earlier, until the DLC comes out later this year, it is not very engaging. You start off as a miner for a mining company, and for the first, I'm going to say like 2 minutes, maybe up to 5, you feel like you're in a lived-in area. Basically, it feels plausible. The director, Lynn, she guides you around, talking to other miners, and you get a short mining tutorial. It's not vastly different from too many Bethesda games. Just getting the basic down. But it does feel like a plausible area that you could see here on Earth if you were in a mine kind of situation. Then you are sent into a newly opened cavern to retrieve a object that is throwing gravitational readings off. As soon as you touch the item, you black out, have visions of a galaxy, and there's music playing. You wake up in a new part of the mining facility where Lynn and your buddy, I keep forgetting his name, wake you up, and this is where you get to customize the look of your characters, the background of the character, and any special traits of your character. It is right after this that you're introduced to your first Constellation, well, later teammate, Barrett. And then you are introduced to the combat tutorial, which is where space pirates, the Crimson Fleet, come in because Barrett is a wanted man. After a quick shootout with, I think, like 6 to 10 enemies, Barrett gives you his ship along with a robot named Vasco, and you go into space. Quick tutorial later of space combat and how to use your ship. You are sent to a moon to defeat the Crimson's fleet's commander of the area. It's not too difficult or challenging at all, but once you beat him, you are pretty much free to roam. But with Vasco there, you're pretty much sent right to the to the city of New Atlantis. And from there, you are introduced to the group Constellation, which is described as a group of explorers. Now, the object you found is something they've been looking for. They just simply call it the artifact. Now, here's where you are free to pretty much do what you want to. You can continue doing the main story, or you can just go off exploring the different planets and factions, quests, and all that. For the purpose of this quick review, you continue to find artifacts on different planets with different people, learning a little more about your Constellation teammates and all that. After you collect about your 3rd or 4th artifact, after the mission with Walter, the gentleman in the tuxedo, you are contacted by a mysterious ship called the Helix and its pilot, who will later to be revealed as the Emissary. He demands that you hand over the artifacts, that we are messing with forces unknown, and you outright refuse to give him the artifacts. He won't fight you, but actually no, if I remember correctly, he will attack, but you can easily escape or persuade him not to fight. After you collect one more artifact, you are informed by Vladimir, the keeper of the space station, the Eye, that he needs help looking for more artifacts by resetting or adjusting the scopes on the space station. Your party will be split up between the Lodge and the Eye, and within this time, a new adversary called the Hunter shows up. Now, the first time you are introduced to him, you cannot beat him, and one of your party members, Barrett, actually does get killed. Or at least it was Barrett for me. I'm not sure if there is a randomizer where a certain other person could get killed, but like I said, for me, it was Barrett. Now, as you see in my footage, however, it says Starborn option. This is my second playthrough, well, technically 3rd playthrough, so I had the option of taking the artifacts with me, and there is a twist to that where I got visited by the Hunter on board my ship and no one got killed. Now, during the first playthrough, one of your Constellation teammates, Mateo, overhears the Hunter mention the word Unity. In the playthrough I went through, when the hunter visited my ship, he said, "Oh, make sure to mention the word unity to Mateo, since I won't be around to casually drop the word like I usually do." Now, this also introduces, well, again, going with my third playthrough, I already know the ending, but this reveals to the player that there might be more to it than first anticipated, besides the artifacts being of great import. So Mateo reveals that the word unity is a major component in the religion he is in, and you must go seek the advice of the, oh, I forget his name, basically the lead priest on New Atlantis. He reveals to you that a being simply known as the Pilgrim visited two other religious organizations in times past, and that when you're speaking to the religious ambassadors, if you want, you discover a code word and a coordinate, basically. And you are led to a planet where the Pilgrim was last known to be at. You can read his. You have to read his writings, and it is revealed to you that he is a starborn of sorts, or the first starborn. I may have to go back myself and reread all that, but yeah. Yeah, even reading through the Starfield wiki here, just says he's an ancient starborn who travels through the Unity, seeking its meaning and studying it. The Pilgrim performed many experiments, introducing the symbols to different cultures and observing their interpretations, primarily religious interpretations. Afterwards, you are directed to a new world and a island full of scorpions to figure out one final puzzle piece, which is called the Scorpion's Tail. It's a simple puzzle. First time it took me real quick. This time I don't know why it took me a little bit longer. But it points you to another world that you need to go to discover the truth. When you reach the world that you are directed to, you are to have a meeting with the hunter and the emissary. In your first time playing through this, you discover who they are. The emissary is a different universe's version of Barrett. The hunter is a different universe's version of the keeper, the priest guy. I forgot how to pronounce his name. And you, at first you're shocked. You go, "But Barrett, I saw you die." He explains, "It's not me. I'm not the version you know. I'm a different version." And the keeper, you go, "Oh my God, you're a man of peace. This isn't like you." And he goes, "Haha, well, in this universe I am. In my universe I'm not." And they explain that the Unity is a portal to the multiverse. Yes, multiverse. Just what we need. Yay! And the artifacts that you've been collecting is the key to unlocking the gateway to the Unity. So basically, every Starborn is looking for all the pieces of the key, or the Armatrice, I think that's how you pronounce it, to go through the Unity each time and get more powerful. The emissary and the hunter are just the most powerful ones, since they are the oldest, and there's hints that they are the ones that followed the Pilgrim. Yeah. It is from here you are directed to go to Earth's moon to figure out what happened, and from there you head to NASA on Earth. This is to explain what happened to Earth and basically the start of the entire quote-unquote arms race for the artifacts. On Earth, when you reach the artifact in question, all the gravity is turned off. And we discover that the original inventor of the gravity drives had experimented with the artifacts. It's when he touched the one that was found on Mars. He was given visions of the future and what could be and what he would become. It was the grav drive's experiment that ended up destroying the planet by distorting the gravity field enough that the atmosphere no longer existed. So we were forced into the stars. Once you collect this final, well, I say final, but once you collect the artifact on Earth, the hunter and emissary want to meet with you one last time peacefully, but as you're leaving, other Starborn come and start attacking you. This is also right around the point that you will start engaging more and more with other Starborn entities, visiting the artifacts and the temples. I will cover the temples in a little bit. Once you are back outside and meet with the hunter and emissary, this is basically the final quote-unquote step before the end game, or it is the end game, depending on how you look at it. The emissary tells you, well, you basically have a choice. You can either side with me or the hunter, and you actually have a third choice. You can fight against them both, and once you pick a side, either side or your own side, you are told that you will meet them at the buried temple, that the final place for the final place for the final battle for the final artifact always takes place there, and that whoever the victor is will get all the artifacts to create the key to the Unity. As you see in the footage, I decided to engage them both just for the giggles. But the first time I went with the emissary because honestly the idea of a super powerful villain like the hunter is never a good idea for all of existence. Before you head to the final world, there are a couple more artifacts to collect. One of them has a unique storyline attached where a group of scientists is experimenting with it, opening dimension pockets to another universe. It's an interesting concept that, unfortunately, really, a lot of the artifact pieces don't have their own sub-stories. There's one or two here and there, but this one is definitely the more unique of the bunch. But it also proves that messing with the artifacts in any way has always been a bad idea. But once you collect all the pieces, you head to the final world. And in space, you have a space battle with your fellow Starborns. Normally, I went with the hunter. I fought against the hunter, so I would always have the emissary show up and assist me later on. The footage I have now, the emissary and the hunter, with a couple of allies, are fighting me. And full disclosure, this footage has been on very easy mode because I did play through on normal the first time, and I just kind of want to go through it as it is laid out. After you land upon the planet, you discover a base that was built above the buried temple, where a bunch of mercs are already been slaughtered, and you can loot their bodies for any last minute ammo, med packs, and the such. The rest of the enemies are Starborn and then resurrected mercenaries. There are 4 major encounters before you reach the final conflict in the buried temple. The first one is with a singular Starborn who uses his duplicate or pool different versions of himself powers to fight you, and it takes a minute or two, well, a couple of minutes to fight them all off, but they're not necessarily difficult on normal mode. It's also a point to it. I should also point out that when you have a companion with you, the companion can actually die. The first time I went through here, I had Sarah Morgan with me, and I was looking for her after the fight, and I discovered her corpse. I was like, no! So, reset and fought him again. This time she survived. So that is a point that your companions can be killed within the game. After this fight, you will encounter another Starborn that will resurrect the dead, and after the second wave, he makes his own appearance, and you can fight him there. As you get closer to the actual buried temple itself, you discover tears within the multiverse, and you have to enter these, and it's fairly quick, just moments in your life that pass by through different universes. And the first one is literally when you reach the first artifact, and you don't actually reach it, but where you were the first target in the game. And immediately after you leave that, you fight 2 more Starborn. This one's a little trickier simply because they have robots and turrets, but if you ignore them, this fight is actually still fairly easy. Just shoot them a few times and voila. But once you take them out, you have to keep in mind you still have the robots and turrets to worry about. The second tear is an event I didn't encounter during this run, but it's basically a space pirate or space collector, guy who just wants to collect the most expensive items in the known galaxy. And his mission was semi-interesting. You could either buy it off him or attempt to steal it off him, and I tried buying it off him, but he tried to have me killed and convinced him otherwise with a lot of bullets. But basically in this, you just have to shoot the guy and get his key and run, or you can basically wipe the entire floor with everyone else in here as well. The final multiverse tear is where you see your character dead in the arms of Vladimir. Now this is important because the hunter, when you first encounter him and escape, he says he is shocked, and he decides he wants to let you live, because in every other universe he's been in, you are the one who ends up dying, not Barrett. So this is significant because we get to see ourselves being dead. You can approach Vladimir, and he'll be in shock, but you don't have to engage with him at all, as I had shown. You just turn around and walk away. And you're given one last opportunity to gear up with a lot of ammo and weapons for the next encounter, which will be a singular Starborn that makes duplicates of you, and if you have a partner with you. It's going to be kind of frustrating, as some of the clones are easy to kill, others are more difficult, and the Starborn himself will vanish and disappear for a little bit before you can inflict damage upon him. And now you're a mere feet from the buried temple, which, like all temples within this game, it actually looks pretty cool. As far as I'm aware, this is the only one that is buried underground, hence the name. Yay! And within these sacred halls of the Starborn, you are given one final chance to either make peace with your adversary or adversaries, or fight them. Now, for full disclosure, I did fight the hunter the first time. I didn't record it I was just really tired and I wanted to get through the game. But in this one and the one previous, I was actually able to talk him down, and he would walk away or vanish. And that is considered a defeat. This one, I defeated them both since I was able to talk the hunter down, and the emissary naturally just wants peace to begin with. So once you defeat your enemy or enemies, you are given all of the artifact pieces to make the final key. This would be the time, if you want to finish anything else within the game, to do it. Because once you put all the artifact pieces together to form the key, the Armatress, you will be transported to the Unity no matter what. Once you're in the Unity, it's in one of the coolest looking areas in the game, in my opinion. You are surrounded by galaxies and stars, and simply ahead is an orb with a figure that turns out to be you, which is a representation of the Unity. And it basically says that you can go through the Unity and be reborn in a new universe, or you can head on back and do whatever. And I'm assuming that if you go back, that you can use the Armatress whenever you want. I'm not 100% sure about that, but I will test that out later. And while you're in the Unity itself, you can go to different characters and get explanations about what will happen once you leave this universe. If you have a partner, in my case Sarah, she will later go through the Unity and explore the multiverse as a Starborn as well. And then different factions will have different statements. But once you enter the Unity, it is New Game Plus mode for you. And that is the end of the story.
Although you leave this universe behind, a new universe awaits you. Who will you be in this one? What choices will you make?
And this is the point where the credits roll. I hope you enjoyed that little visual. Honestly, it just feels like it doesn't have anything to do with the game, really. But I really enjoy it. So, felt like sharing it with you. Anywho, like I said earlier, this game, it's not terrible, but it's not a high recommendation on my list for people to play as of yet. Hopefully when the DLC drops, it'll be better. And I said earlier in the video that hopefully I'll get this out before the update, but as of right now, it is actually the 11th. The update has been out for at least a day as of the re-recordings of this. So I'll be getting into the updates as soon as I am able to. I will say though that the combat mechanics themselves are fairly solid. As you see, shooting feels pretty good. It's pretty accurate. The only time it's not, it really depends on the weaponry being used. But ballistic rounds, pretty straightforward. There's a couple of laser weapons that are not my favorite, but still pack a decent enough punch. Now, before I forget again, I'm bouncing back to the combat system, and it also affects non-combat as well. The temples where you get your Starborn powers. Now, some of these powers I personally found pretty useless. I haven't unlocked all of them yet. I think I'm missing 3, maybe 4. I'm pretty sure it's 3 at this point. And then there's others that are pretty damn useful. One useless form, or one useless power that I have, that I think is useless, I should say, is move form. You turn into a rock and you cannot move. Now, the only advantage that has that I've noticed is you take reduced damage. Now, I'll be one for reduced damage and slower movement, but to just become a rock and not move just doesn't appeal to me. The ones I like the most is gravity field, where once activated, objects and enemies float up into space and they are unable to do anything, and gives you plenty of time to take them out. I think I'm on the 3rd level of that right now. My other favorite is currently on the 2nd level, but it's called phase time, where you move faster. That's it. You move faster, but your actions are not. You can go behind your enemy, take multiple enemies out at a quicker pace, but once you get into a reload animation, you're reloading for a long time. Switching weapons is the same. So, plan accordingly. But like I said, I have only 3 or 4 missing powers, and I use only about 2 of them right now. And every time you visit a temple, you have to do the same unlock a puzzle. It's hard to call it a puzzle. It's more like you just go to the glowing lights until you hear the device unlock and go through a cool looking animation and you receive your powers. Now, once the Starborn are present coming around, I believe that's right after you meet the emissary the first time in his ship, the Helix. That's when the Starborn starts showing up. So every time you gain a power, you will encounter a Guardian Starborn. Now, there are occasionally where the Guardian does not spawn right in front of you and engages. Depending on where the temple is, like with the planet, the Starborn Guardian actually will not notice you and will not engage until you approach the Guardian. So there's some advantage to that. And every time you defeat a Starborn, you gain Quantum Essence, which basically boosts your ability to use the powers more
Earlier
quickly.
I said I wish we had a
As is on a recharge, but we got more of an experimental
Quantum
game.
Essence.
What I mean by this game really
up
just
quicker,
does
much
not
quicker.
feel like a game where you
Goes
can
up quickly,
explore
and you can use your powers
space
more
very
often.
well. Or at the very least, at a whim. There are missions in the lodge with Constellation where you get to survey planets and stuff like that, but that's really about it. You can go to each planet as you want. You can land on the ones that have solid ground, and you can survey life. You can create some outposts, but that's it. It doesn't feel like that's the main purpose of the game, though. It feels like the main purpose of the game is to collect the artifacts, go through the Unity, and start all over again. Which does not strictly appeal to me in the sense of I'm going to be doing this every day kind of thing. I'm probably going to do it for like a day or two, put it down, play some other games, and I'll come back to it later. But honestly, it's just for a genre that I am very interested in. This game does not hold my interest in the long term, at least until Shattered Space comes out. And like I said several times before, we shall see what that brings with it. It's also disappointing because the whole point of the Constellation group is that they are meant to be explorers of space. Sarah even says several times that she kept Constellation neutral during the wars. Or, no, not Sarah, Aja, the former head of Constellation. But the whole point of Constellation is to be explorers, to explore the unknown, to venture into space and discover the mysteries out there. And while the artifacts are definitely a mystery and trying to figure out what the Unity is, it does not, to me at least, does not feel like it should have been the main focus of the game. I think finding the artifacts could have been done here and there, finding more about the Starborn later on, and then the potential of entering the Unity, where it's like, have, I don't know, a group discussion of saying, well, we have all these pieces. Do we stay here and continue to analyze it? Perhaps maybe allow other people to come with us? Do we attempt to go through all at the same time? But that doesn't happen. It's just get the artifact, get some powers, get the artifact, fight the Starborn, go through the Unity, start all over again. And speaking of doing it all over again, there's another point against the game. For right now, I don't know if it will be updated later, but once you go through the Unity, the only things that you will keep is your level and your space powers. The only things you are given is a new Starborn suit and a new Starborn ship. Now, apparently you have to go through the Unity 10 times to get the best of both, from what I'm told. And there's potentially a Starborn weapon later on or around that time. I'm not 100% sure. But if you really dedicated a lot of time and effort into building a ton of outposts, building a bunch of ships, building relationships, doing all these faction quests and all that, well, once you go through the Unity, you lose everything. Like, you do not keep a single thing. Which, yes, it makes sense since you're starting the game over again. The point where you start is right before you go to New Atlantis. You don't have to go through the tutorials again. But for those who love putting time and effort into bases and shipbuilding to get everything just right, to make it flow perfectly and run perfectly, to lose all that, I don't know, hours if not days of work just gone. That's a damn shame. So, just been thinking about what I would have liked to see, or what I would like to see in future, perhaps even a new game, like entirely new game, Starfield 2 if you want. So for one, I would love for the story to be more of exploring space, and that would entail probably using a different gaming engine itself, just because the load screens and the lack of the actual feeling of being able to explore or fly the ship around really detracts from the enjoyment of the game, in my opinion. There was less loading screen times, or animated loading screens, or even loading screens that were you can get up from your ship as you're going between different systems, like what Jedi Survivor and Fallen Order did, where it's like, okay, you have a minute of loading time before you get to the next system, so you can walk around the ship, you can do some crafting if you need to, talk to crewmates, or just in general just get up from the seat and do something. Or even if it's just like a pre-rendered loading screen where your crewmates come up to the captain's chair and you guys talk or something. Anything like that to hide the loading screen and make it a little more interactive. If you were already in a system and you need to go to a moon, you can use the fast travel option, but it would be also cooler if you could just go to the moon. Just use your light sublight drives and fly to the moon, but again, being able to get up and your ship doesn't stop moving, because once you get out of the pilot seat, the ship stops moving and you pretty much don't go anywhere. Small stuff like that. Even going in and out of the atmosphere, even a pre-rendered animated screen would be neat. Anything besides a black loading screen, and then suddenly you're there. The artifact collection, that definitely needs to take a second, or it needs to take a back seat of importance. Space powers, I believe, should be completely optional, and once again take a back seat to the main game or the main purpose of the game. I just find myself not using the powers as much as they are probably intended to be using. So personally, if we didn't have them, and it would be like humanity discovering the Starborns and how much of a threat they are and rising up against them kind of thing, that'd be kind of interesting. And I'm actually going to do another video about my problem with the lore of Starfield as it is right now. So I'm going to save my complaints about the Starborn in general for that. Another thing I have an issue, well, quote-unquote issue with, is just the amount of things in this game that they give you to do. There is a lot of crafting in this game. There's research tables, there's tons of crafting tables in which you can make your own items, your modified guns and spacesuits. You can make outposts, you can make ships, you can build houses. It's just, there's a lot of crafting, and generally I find that okay, but when there's just so much of it, it kind of detracts from the uniqueness of it. They say you can craft your own guns and spacesuits, and to me that means you can make them from scratch, but from what I've discovered in the game so far, you don't make them from scratch, you're just modifying them. So you're really just modifying weapons and spacesuits. So for me, that takes a little bit of a hit in uniqueness of it. But even if there was less crafting in there, I think that would aid in the potential freeing of great in-game engine usage, I guess it's the term I'm thinking of. But I think less crafting would be optimal. And going back to space exploration, being able to build your own ships, like if you would have to go to across the galaxy, let's say, what if you needed enough fuel in order to go? Because you do have a fuel gauge when you're traveling between the systems, but it's never really utilized in the fact that you need to refuel. Depending on the size of the fuel tank your ship has, you are limited the number of planets you can jump to, but that's about it. After the jump is used, your fuel is refueled right away. So it's not like, well, I can only go to this planet before I refuel, or I need to bring 18 extra canisters. Like some sort of ship management in that aspect. That would be an interesting idea to use. The planets themselves, Todd Howard has said there are 1,000 planets to explore and countless like hundreds of life forms to discover. Well, most of these planets are pretty much barren, copy and paste with different color palettes and different environments from each other. There's no vast uniqueness between each world. You have the 3 main worlds that have the big cities, but even then the cities are kind of not that big. New Atlantis is possibly the biggest one, but it's divided into 3 different sections, and each section is still kind of meh. The residential, commercial, and mass district is the biggest area, but it doesn't feel like a city. It just feels like a bunch of buildings thrown together. Neon is a city on an oil rig, basically. The main strip itself is like just going up and down, and there's 6-7 stores with a nightclub and then 1 office on the other end. It has the most places to explore out of all of them, but each area does not feel that large. And then there's Aquila City for the Freestar Collective. That would be what I would imagine more planets would have, which is basically a walled city, and it feels more like a underdeveloped town, like in the Wild West. But that is it for the major cities in the galaxy. From there on out, you have small outposts, which again are pretty much copy and paste. You have some cave systems that are, well, depending on what system they're for, or if they're part of the main storyline, range from, 10 feet into about a mile long. The ones that you are required to look for artifacts in are the biggest, because they have to present a little more of a challenge. A lot of the ones I found in the wild or not attached to a side quest are very small. So, again, very disappointed. The different xeno life forms, or non-human life forms, are basically bugs. There's a couple lizard-like creatures, but a lot of the ones I've discovered are mostly bug-like creatures. There's no real variety to them. They either will attack you or they won't attack you. All the resources are exactly the same. All the basic elements on the periodic table, which is not very interesting when you run into iron for the billionth time on a planet that's nowhere near Earth that might not even have iron. The atmospheres range from normal to dangerous to extreme. I really haven't found the extremes to be that bad. The only one that gives me the issue is frostbite damage, but even then, that's really not much of a detriment to exploring. I say exploring, but looking around the planet. Each planet has a set number of resources that you can look for, and once you scan them, you get to one step closer to 100% surveying the planet. But that's about it. Once you're done surveying, you can't say, "Hey, let's send a signal to whatever faction has an interest here that they can start making an outpost or anything like that." It's just you surveyed the planet. Congratulations. Here's 20 XP. So leveling is also a pain in the butt because it doesn't feel like you get a lot of XP unless you're going through the Unity or beating the emissary / hunter. And it's just like you found a new system, okay, 20 XP. You killed a guy, 2 XP. You landed on an unknown planet, 4 XP. You beat a main storyline quest, 100 XP. You defeated the hunter, 5,000 XP. You went through the Unity, 5,000 XP. Yay, okay. So leveling up is a very slow process, it feels like. And according to a video I saw with a new update, there are now XP modifiers. The harder it is, the more XP you get. Duh. And then there's some other modifiers that give you more XP or take away XP. Such as ship cargo range. You can have it. You can set your cargo. You can set the cargo range for your ship to be wherever, and you lose XP. I believe if you set it to normal, you still retain the same amount of XP, and there might be another one. It's like you can only access it while you're on the ship, and you get like another 6% XP. I don't know. So yeah, leveling in this game is a little frustrating. The skill tree, it's not difficult at all, but it is kind of annoying sometimes. It just takes forever because you get 1 skill point with each level. And if you're not leveling up properly or slowly, it's just like, okay, come on, let's go. And then it's just a ton of things to unlock. I think it's like 20, no, not 20, about 15 to 18 for subsections for each tree. And then each one of those has 4 levels, so it takes forever to properly level up. So I'm sure I'll think of something else to complain about later. Like I said, I'm not going to recommend this game to be like played right away. You have to get into it. I would say either wait for it to be on sale or wait for the Game of the Year edition or whatever they're going to call it, where special edition game, whatever, whenever they release that in a couple of years. But as it stands, like I said, this game is very meh. I will hopefully give my impressions or feelings for Shattered Space later this year. Hopefully it won't be as late as this one was. But yeah, so before I start repeating myself again, thank you guys for listening, and I'll talk to you later. See ya.